Close your eyes. Imagine you're surrounded by the sound of the ocean, water lapping at the hull, and a gentle wind waving the sails above. It's a peaceful evening amidst the mysterious waters of the world. That is until you open your eyes, and staring straight ahead is another ship, void of life and decaying with death approaching you. Eerie and empty, like a massive ghost of the seas. We've all heard of the mythological ghost ships, from the Flying Dutchman to the Princess Augusta, embedded into our oceanic folklore. However, many times throughout history, ghosts have actually been discovered either by accident or by salvage hunters looking for treasure, and even supernatural hotspots amongst forgotten vessels and lost cruise liners. While many of these derelict ships are nothing more than scrap metal, there are a few cases in which the vessel indeed owned up to its ghoulish moniker. Here are 5 fascinating reports of real-life ghost ships. Hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. Lyubov Orlova. In 1976, Yugoslavian shipwrights built an ice-strengthened Maria Yumalova-class cruise ship for the Russian Federation, named MV Lyubov Orlova. The ship, named after a famous Russian celebrity and movie star, gained recognition as an expedition cruise ship that ventured into the fascinating waters of Antarctica, even dipping into Arctic territory during its peak operations. It was one of few liners to offer luxurious tours throughout the North and South Pole territories, and offered more than the normal cruise ships sponsored for expeditionary trips. The craft itself went under extensive refurbishment and renovations between 1999 and 2002, and eventually lost its unequivocal luster when it ran aground at Deception Island, Antarctica in 2006. Lyubov Orlova was then towed to Argentina, the southernmost city in the world, and saw its prominence drastically decline. In September of 2010, the cruise liner was decommissioned for its massive debts to Cruise North expeditions and an unpaid crew. It was impounded in St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada, where it deteriorated for over 2 years into a derelict ship and completely depleted of the elegant status it once held. In January of 2013, it was decided that the ship would be towed to the Dominican Republic and immediately scrapped for parts. However, a series of malfunctions with multiple towing lines resulted in the ship drifting out to sea, getting lost within international waters and leaving human supervision. Transport Canada announced that no special efforts would be made to rescue the ship, as it posed zero threat to either marine life or oil rigging operations around the Atlantic coastline. However, in February of the same year, reports spread that the once luxurious liner had been left abandoned in the ocean, and treasure hunters immediately set out to find the cruise liner, with its precious fixtures still aboard. However, any crews that did search for the ship came up empty-handed, although reports did come in that the ship had been sighted around the Irish coast, about 1,000 nautical miles from land. Then in March, a couple of emergency position indicating radio beacons began transmitting alerts off the Kerry coast, which usually meant a lifeboat had been exposed to water. Another signal sounded off a couple of weeks later, but not all of the EPIR beacons reacted, meaning some of the lifeboats were still attached and the vessel itself was still floating out on the ocean. In January 2014, experts were wary about the status of the ship and what could possibly be aboard. The Independent published an article stating that some researchers and salvage hunters believe disease-ridden cannibal rats infested the ship, spreading their sickness and infecting anything else that may come aboard. It's quite possible that if another crew of sailors or hunters boarded the ship, they would be met with disaster that would surely kill them. Other news sources quickly refuted the cannibal rodent storyline, but we won't know for sure until the vessel is found. In 2017, reports came in that wreckage of the ship had been found on the coast of California, but it was soon discovered to be remnants from the SS Monte Carlo, a Prohibition-era gambling ship. In fact, there have been no confirmed sightings of the Lyubov Orlova or its possible location, and for now, it's aimlessly bobbing about in the sea, with no one quite sure what they will find if they board it. North Korean ghost boats. For decades, the country of North Korea has seen its fair share of political turmoil and societal difficulties. For a community shrouded in mystery, it's no secret that many citizens wish to leave their life within the dictatorship. However, very few actually find an opportunity to escape, and those who do either die in the process or are sent back to North Korea, where they will meet almost certain imprisonment and even death. One method thought to be popular amongst both citizens and soldiers are fishing boats sent out into the Sea of Japan, used as disguises to wade into foreign waters and escape the maritime borders of North Korea. However, these fishing boats have yet to be confirmed as possible defecting tools, and are quite mysterious in their own right. Starting in 2011, the Japanese Coast Guard started keeping records of these dilapidated ships that washed up on their shoreline. Between 2011 and 2017, 406 ships in total were discovered. Aboard the boats were an unofficial body count in the hundreds, spread out over 7 years. Many of the bodies were badly decomposed, including some completely skeletal. Unattached skulls were found strewn about the cabins, and the state of the corpses was so horrible, coroners were unable to find a confirmed cause of death. Experts theorize it was most likely due to starvation and exposure to harsh elements at sea, but nothing has been proven. The ships themselves are actually quite archaic. The hulls are heavy, the equipment outdated, and contain no GPS or navigation system. With fishing demands in North Korea skyrocketing, the stress and workloads on fishermen weigh down their expectations, causing dangerous, lengthy expeditions on the water that last longer than normal. Because not enough rations are taken out on trips, those on the boat must survive on basically nothing, increasing the chances for trouble. Explanations for the ghost ships have varied. Some believe the vast number of empty ships without any signs of human life or corpses hint at a massive suicide somewhere at sea, when the members of the crew decided death by sea would be easier than the slow, grueling demise of starvation. It also makes one wonder if pirates living in the uncharted, unsupervised territories of the area are taking those aboard the ship for their own gangs, and plundering any useful equipment lingering on the fishing boats. Other conspiracy theorists believe there might be something more supernatural occurring in the heart of the Sea of Japan, such as a mythical beast or predatory creature lurking beneath unsuspecting fishing boats, or even a Bermuda Triangle type situation. The biggest opposition to such ideas is the Sea of Japan is usually a strictly policed territory, and such imaginative stories don't hold much weight under the Japanese government supervision. For the people found still alive on the fishing boats, most are sent back to North Korea. Unfortunately, there are no records or identification of the survivors. It would be fascinating if interviews between officials and boat crews were collected, so that we could hear the testimonies of those who lived to tell the tales of the sea. In the meantime though, we are left only with questions surrounding the North Korean ghost ships. Belle Amica. On August 24, 2006, the Italian Coast Guard discovered a classic-style schooner ghost ship floating off the coast near the Mediterranean island of Sardinia, near Punta Volpe. Government officials boarded the vessel and towed her away, and afterwards did a full sweep of the ship, and what they found was fascinating. Throughout the schooner, investigators identified a half-eaten meal of Egyptian food, maps of North African seas written in French, a pile of unmarked clothing, and the flag of Luxembourg. The ship itself had no registration under Italian territories, nor any other country for that matter. The only piece of identification researchers found was a wooden plaque that read Belle Amica, roughly translated to beautiful friend in English. Once the initial reports came through European channels, Italian newspapers claimed to have found the rightful owner of the ship. Days later, authorities identified a man from Luxembourg as the suspect. When questioned why the empty vessel had been left anchored in deep waters, he gave quite a vague response, remarking that he had to abandon the ship quickly to return home and tend to a family emergency. Further details were never released, and many of the Italian newspapers claimed the entire situation was a ruse to avoid the ridiculous taxation on luxurious vessels. Many curious citizens and most of the general public called into question why the man was using a pre-steamship schooner as a yacht instead of a modernized ship built for pleasure sailing. While he never divulged exactly why, it's assumed that the ship was nothing more than personal preference, and that many schooner designs are still popular in this day and age. Nonetheless, the gossip surrounding the misidentification of the Belle Amica as an ancient ship spawned several conspiracy theories and darkened the entire mystery, making people wonder if there were French secrets hidden within the North African sea charts, or if the man was sending a signal with his Egyptian oriented cuisine, only he will know the answers to the never-ending questions, and who's to say he'll ever share. The Newfoundland's Viking ghost ship. 1 millennia ago, at the most northern tip of Newfoundland, Vikings of North America established a small settlement called L'Anse Meadow, translated as Jellyfish Cove. It's since been converted into a fascinating fishing village, and more recently, a popular summer tourist landing. The cove isn't all economic fortune and expenditure though. One night every 30 years for the past century, a ghastly ghost ship returns to the surrounding waters, and spooks both visitors and citizens alike. The first sighting dates back over 90 years ago, on a mid-August evening. A group of fishermen returned to Jellyfish Cove with a boat full of fish. An amazing trip to the seas that produced a good catch. That night, one of the fishermen stayed behind to gut his portion of fish. Inside of his shack, he began hearing an approaching sound of unison splashing, imitating the noise made by paddling oars. Curious as to what kind of vessel would make such a racket, the fisherman went outside and witnessed a large ship heading towards the docks. The vessel was incredibly long and narrow, with a single massive sail pitched up through the middle. A set of oars were cast into the water on either side, and it moved at lightning speeds. Just as it was about to make land, however, it vanished into thin air. 30 years later, a similar summoning was witnessed. Again on August the 13th, a couple of teenagers were hunting for fishermen's alcohol stored somewhere along the coast. At one of the shacks they plundered, they found a bottle of whiskey and quickly celebrated their find. It was interrupted, however, by an increasing splashing sound coming from the water outside. Fearing they had been caught, the boys ran into the doorway and halted with shock. Coming straight for them was the long and narrow Viking ship, once more vanishing just as it reached the shore. Scared and shocked, the teenagers ran off back to the village, leaving their stolen whiskey behind them. Murmurs of similar happenings slowly spread throughout the community, and soon the legend was set. Jellyfish Cove was the mysterious home to an old Viking armada. 30 years after the whiskey event, one more sighting was reported. A lone fisherman completed a day's worth of bountiful fishing, staying out on the sea longer than his peers to spark a little more luck. All was well until the twinkling stars were covered by incoming clouds and the weather turned ominous. Knowing he couldn't risk his haul, the fisherman went to start his boat's motor and found it was completely dead, leaving him stranded. Frightened and unsure, the fisherman double-checked his fuel line and connections, confirming all was mechanically correct. Just as the fisherman decided all hope was lost, he heard the oars of the Viking ghost ship splashing in the distance, speeding towards his much smaller vessel. Fearing for his life, the fisherman rapidly tried the engine until it suddenly returned to life. But just as he went to steer clear of the oncoming ship, he turned to see the Viking vessel vanish. Lost for an explanation, the fisherman motored his way home. In an interesting twist, all three of the legendary appearances of the ghost ship have spelt mostly positive results. The villagers enjoy the ghostly events and love the extra tourism it promotes around the area. It's unknown exactly which August the 15th will spawn another sighting, but doesn't detract from the shroud of mystery hanging over Jellyfish Cove and the good luck of the Newfoundland Viking ghost vessel. The Carroll A Deering Maritime Mystery. In 1919, Bath, Maine was the site of G.G. Deering Company, known for their pristine craftsmanship of boats and commercial liners. They had just completed a 5-masted schooner masterpiece, named after the founder's son, Carroll A. Deering, and immediately set the boat into the cargo carrier business, operating alongside the Atlantic coastline. However, on August 19, 1920, just a year into its service, the Carroll A. Deering departed for what would be its final voyage and ultimately become one of the world's most mysterious ghost ship cases that has baffled both researchers and conspiracy theorists for decades. On that fateful August day, the Deering prepped itself with a large haul of coal to be transported from Norfolk, Virginia to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It was captained by William H. Merritt and his son, Sewell Merritt. The rest of the 10-man Scandinavian crew joined the voyage and took off on August the 22nd. Before the calendar month ended, however, Captain Merritt fell gravely ill and had to be taken back up the coast to Delaware. He and his son were replaced by a 66-year-old veteran sailor, Captain W.B. Wormel, and a feisty first mate, Charles McKellen. They reset their course, and on September the 8th arrived in Rio without issue after a straightforward voyage. The problem arose when the crew took a short leave and frolicking in Brazil. Captain Wormel rekindled a friendship with fellow cargo sailors around the area, but talked of his men with disdain, only giving praise to his engineer, Herbert Bates. Soon after, the Deering departed Rio and stopped in Barbados for supplies. It was first mate McLellan who stirred up gossip. He drunkenly complained amongst other sailors that Captain Wormel was a poor leader, not allowing for discipline, and was too blind to correctly navigate the ship. Fellow captains took action when McLellan went as far to say, "I'll get the captain before we get to Norfolk, I will." McLellan was swiftly arrested, but in a bizarre twist, the captain forgave him and bailed him out of jail, allowing him back on the Deering as they set sail for Hampton Roads on January the 9th, 1921. The last sighting of the liner came 19 days later when a light ship spotted the Deering near Cape Lookout in North Carolina. The keeper of the lightship had no means of external communication, but took note from a fellow seaman who came aboard to tell the lightship that the Deering had lost its anchors in a storm off Cape Fear. On January the 31st, the Carroll A Deering was officially discovered shipwrecked on Diamond Shoals of Cape Hatteras, a notorious ghost ship area. Due to bad weather, the ship was unreachable until 4 days later when the Coast Guard boarded the abandoned ship. They found almost nothing. The ship's log and technical equipment were missing, along with the lifeboats and crew's personal belongings. The only thing out of the ordinary was the galley, situated as if in the middle of prepping for the next day's meal. The Deering was unscrappable and blasted with dynamite after a governmental investigation. The search for the crew was fruitless, as no one was able to track what happened to the ship between its sighting near Cape Lookout and the wreck on Diamond Shoals. An official finding was never announced. Many possible explanations have been suggested over the years, but nothing conclusive has yet to be absolutely proven. Meteorologists suggest Atlantic hurricanes could have been a major factor. The storms that season were particularly vicious and accounted for multiple other missing ships. However, the appearance and physical nature of the Deering would rule out an assault by the sea itself. A couple of popular theories revolve around piracy, Soviet takeover, and theft by rum runners, but all were discounted by the fact that the ship had been found physically unscathed, and that no concrete evidence could link any of the suggestions. Decades after the incident, paranormal experts conspired that supernatural phenomena could have been the answer to the crew's disappearance. While the wreck was in American territory, the ship would have passed through the Bermuda Triangle. Because everything was lost without a trace, people wondered if a higher power or superior technology removed the crew and its artifacts from the ship. In the end, most historians and researchers believe the Carroll A Deering was a victim of mutiny due to the suspicious comments made by both Captain Wormel and his first mate. Regardless, the fact that nothing has ever been found of the cargo or its crew leaves this ghost ship to be just as mysterious as the rest. I hope you're enjoying these creepy videos. Don't forget to click the notification bell on this channel to stay up to date with all our daily uploads this month. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.